Hello, my happy quilters. Here we are again at the Chatsworth Block of the Month, and then we have block number 3 this time.
No, I'm so excited.
It is exciting. It's a little bit of a different, maybe a little more challenging type of a block, but certainly very, very doable. So again, you're going to get block number 3. You're going to pick this out of your pattern. And we will get started. So the traditional method of piecing I'm going to talk about first. And here is the block. And this is, I'm going to use traditional piecing. And then if you've been following along with this, you know I've also been using a jelly roll. So this is the one that I'm using a jelly roll and also a little bit of yardage of white as well. So when you get started on your pattern, first of all, you want to put it down here?
You bet.
Let me move these out of the way for later. But we're going to cut some squares, and it tells you to cut so many of your background squares and so many of your light squares. And I've started sewing some of these, so you just follow the directions as it is here on how he's got really nice directions in these little blocks at the top of every single block of what you need to cut. So you need to cut 2 different size squares. So you have some small background squares, and then you have some of this kind of squares and these to make your blocks. And then you also have some rectangles. And here I have, this is the back side of a couple of rectangles that I've done too for these angled piece in here, in these blocks here, that form this wonderful star. You know what the name of that star is?
I was going to say, I think it's called the Lemoyne star.
Is it the Lemoyne star?
However, this is the easier version because there are no Y seams involved in creating this star. And I appreciate that about this block.
So anyways, we're going to start with these these pieces, these long ones. Actually, he has you cutting
He has you marking 8 squares.
Yes. Okay. We're going to mark 8 squares, and we mark them on the back like this. And you can see that I've marked this one. And then you can also use this little tool. It's a Creative Grids tool to put right on the point of everything. And then just take your pencil and mark in here too. And then you can, if you want to, you can mark on both sides for your actual seam if you want to, but if you follow, if your 1/4 inch foot on your sewing machine is perfectly accurate, you can put your edge of your presser foot right along there and it will work out just great. So then what we're going to do is we're going to cut this. We'll cut it with the rotary cutter, and then we're going to take it and we're going to fold these back like this. Of course, so this will be gone, and we'll fold these back, and then you are going to have to make sure you trim these down to the correct size. And with traditional piecing, or at least measure them to make sure they are the correct size. Then with these guys, these rectangles, what we're going to do is we're going to take these squares and we're going to put them on here like this. And once again, you're going to follow the directions, and you're going to mark the back side corner to corner of this one that you have on the top. And then again, you're going to sew, but only on one side, like this. You sew down the center for this one, sorry. You sew down the center, so you mark the center here. There's so many blocks here, I get confused from one to the next. Anyways, so now you're gonna sew down this side, and then you will trim it and make something that looks like this or like this, the same thing. Now, when you're doing this, watch your pictures over here to make sure these angles aren't going this way Ask me how I know this. Make sure you follow the pictures so that you know how all of those go together. And then I think on the back side here is just how to put these together in quadrants. So you're going to keep your like type of fabrics together. So we have these half square triangles, and then we have this long rectangle block, and you're going to put them in together in quadrants like this and sew them together. Now Joy will be showing you all the sewing and piecing, how to piece this in just a little bit.
So in the traditional piecing, this is something that Marcia and I often do because
Yes.
drawing lines is not, we sew a lot of quilts.
Yes.
And we need to sew them quickly. So we have this tool that Doug Leko created, and it's called the Simple Folded Corners Ruler. I'm using the mini one, but instead of drawing the line, we can actually use this tool to do the stitch and flip method. So this ruler, when we set it down on top, what you're looking for is the back end to line up with the back end of your square and the bottom end to line up with the square. And what you'll notice is that the diagonal line should go all the way from one corner to the other very accurately. What we will do then is we're going to go ahead and just cut that ear off, pull it away, and now we can accurately sew a 1/4 inch seam, and that seam will land exactly from one corner to the next. And that is using the Simple Folded Corners Ruler. This is a real quick, easy way to create it, and with all these lines on his ruler, it makes it very easy to be sure that everything is aligned properly. All right, so that's one of my favorite traditional tools, and now we'll go on to...
We never have enough tools, can we?
No, and it's one that I use all the time.
Right. So now we'll go on to this block. We'll come down here again. We'll go into this block, and this is where I'm using the 2.5 inch strips or a jelly roll. And like I talked to you last time, the last couple times, you can also get jelly rolls of just one color as well. And that's what I'm doing here. Now you will have to have a little bit of yardage for some squares. Not for this one though. This is all going to be cut with the strips. So when we go to do half square triangles, we talked about this a little bit last time. I'm just going to real quickly cut this off, the selvage. And again, I'm going to take this green one so we can see it a little better. So for doing all of these little half square triangles, again, we can put them right sides together and be able to cut those. Now, for each color, you're going to need 2. For each color, you're going to need 2 of each kind. So I'm just going to cut 2 of this one right now. And again, I'm going to review this particular ruler with you. Now, there are other rulers that you can use, but you want to have the half square here, and you want it to be able to read it. And then we're going to take this and we're going to put it right up to the top, just like this. And we're going to line up that 2.5 inch line right here. This is going to be this is going to be exactly flush with this edge. And this little pointed cut off part, the point is cut off up here, is going to be right at the top. And we're simply going to cut like this. So we have this set of half square triangle that's ready to go to your sewing machine, and you can chain piece because right there is the 1/4 inch seam. Then to cut the next one, here's where we were. You're simply going to fold this over like this and move this down so that the 2.5 inch line is up here. Again, this is flush. And then we have a little bitty 1/4 inch triangle hanging off right at the bottom. And then we're going to cut that. And then we have another one. And you can layer these together and do all of your all of these that you need. Now for this one, again, you're going to cut your rectangle piece from each of these things. And again, you'll just use a straight ruler. And you will cut one from each different fabric to whatever size it says right here on your pattern. And you can just use a straight ruler and cut those. And then I use, for this one, I use the simple folded ruler, just like I said before, to cut off to cut these off and to sew them together. So that is using a jelly roll and traditional piecing. And now Joy is going to take you to show you how to use the AccuQuilt.
All right, so I'm going to get out my handy dandy Go Me and open it up. For my piecing, I'm using a Christmas line by Sweetwater, and I again imagined all of my blocks either in all reds with backgrounds or all greens, and I started with a fat quarter pack. And this is, you could hold that for me? All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and demo the half square triangles, because with this AccuQuilt, we only need 2 dies this time. We need die number 7 and die number 5. And I had mentioned that you should measure how far across and add a 1/4 inch on each side for the piece to accurately cut. And they are on an angle, so I'm going to just review that you want to put your piece on so that it is parallel to that line. And I just lay mine over the top and then give it a little slide over the top. And you'll notice I have a directional print, and by doing that, I get a nice straight line. I put my mat over the top and I just set it in one side, and I turn my handle the direction that I want my die to move. I could use my handle either way, yep. And I'm using my left hand, which is not my dominant hand, but you can see how easy it is. I give it a little rub to break the static, and at home I would be more frugal with my fabric. I would save that bit, but I mean, heck, that's not a lot of waste, is it?
It really isn't.
And I have 8 perfect half square triangles with both dog ears cut off for this shape. Now, Marcia used a simple folded corner ruler. She did marking to create these fun little parallelogram shapes. This die is actually die number 7, but what I want to point out about this is that when you look at it, you think you should put the triangle on the 2 ends, but that's not the case. Orientation matters. Let me close this up, and then let's just lay this down here. When we go to sew this together, the first thing you want to do is you want to have your triangles, your parallelograms, I guess they are. And as I said, it's natural to think that the triangles should go here, but they need to go across the wider end. And you know that you have it right because it lines up on one side and you have this little dog ear on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and sew my 1/4 inch seam across here, and I simply, after I sewed it, used my favorite pressing tool and gave it a little finger press, and then I put the second piece on the other side, and you're going to press that nice and flat. Now, you could nip these little ends off with the scissors, but I use them to help me line up the pieces that are in my big block. So in mine, I have 4 different ones, different fabrics represented, but they all have the same background pieces. Then I also have the half square triangles that Marcia cut with her specialty ruler and with a traditional ruler. And as an AccuQuilt cutter, typically I would layer my color fabric with my light color on top so that when they cut, they're automatically together to sew. For demonstration purposes, I simply folded the fabric, but these are going to sew, of course, corner to corner. And again, what I like about this, and I'll turn it over so you can see the red, is that with the dog ears cut off, you have a real clear view of where you need to go because your thread is going to go just inside that corner of your pieces. After you have all your rectangles sewn together, you're going to lay them out and make sure that your star in the middle is going the right direction. The directions in the book are outstanding. And as you press, you're going to make sure that your pressing goes in a way that is least bulky, and that is indicated in the book, but your seams just kind of want to go that way when you start sewing. In the middle, I did sew and press all to one side, but if you are a press open person, you could press that middle seam open if you would like.
Now on this block, I want you to see that she has used a lot of different directional fabrics on this. And by using the orientation on the Go Cutter, she was able to keep these all going straight. Now,
Right.
it's okay if they don't.
No, it adds movement.
It does.
Everybody's sewing is
but
just
there are
fine.
some people that it absolutely just, if you have a stripe in a quilt, it should be straight. That's how they feel. I guess I don't always feel that way. It all depends, because when you see it in the total quilt, you're not looking at just this one little block. But kudos to you and to Joy, who does that like this all the time.
And again, the secret in cutting, whether you're doing traditional or you're using our specialty rulers or you're using AccuQuilt, is if you cut your pieces parallel to the selvage, that is where the fabric is printed, and you can line your ruler up so you get the pattern going the way you want.
Correct.
All right, Marcia, that's
Absolutely.
I think a wrap on block 3.
So, all right, so this is block 3, and so you want to keep on joining us every other Tuesday. This is on our Facebook page and also on YouTube. So if you're watching on us on YouTube, make sure and click the bell and subscribe so that you won't miss a single episode here with us. So we're going to button this up for today. Thank you so much for joining us for block number 3, and we'll see you back here for number 4.